I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
I'm getting ready. I'm getting my hair and my makeup done. And all of a sudden, I look up at my bridesmaids and I go, I know what I forgot. And they're like, what? What'd you forget? I said, I forgot to write my wedding vows.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. I've got two requests for you before we begin our show today. First, we're looking for a new batch of couples to interview for the show. And second, we're looking for stories about relationships for a new segment that we're going to be releasing in coming months. If you or someone you know has a moving or insightful story about a relationship, or if you think they would be great guests for our show, we would love to know them. So please don't be shy. Email me at host@together.guide. I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, if you like what we're up to, please review our show on iTunes. It really does make a big difference when you do that. Now on to the show. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. That's from one of our guests this week, and that quote has stuck with me ever since the interview. We all have our truths, subjective though they may be, and we all know that holding them inside only makes them want out all the more. And our episodes this week are about speaking our truths. Sometimes they're obvious, and they just pop out, as did the surprising statement Ray made to Morgan on one of their first dates. We're going to hear about that in part one of our interview today. Sometimes they're more deeply buried and take a little longer to surface, as with the realizations Ray and Morgan uncovered around sexuality, which we'll discuss in part two on Thursday. Our guests this week, Ray and Morgan, tell us about intimacies that couples often don't share in public. And as always, I'm honored and humbled by their willingness to be transparent. Another word for freedom is nothing left to hide, as I like to say. Thank you, Ray and Morgan, for reminding us all about that. So with that, let's go to part one of our interview with Ray and Morgan.
Well, we met on a dating website, actually, a Jewish dating website.
J-Date?
Called J-Date, yeah.
We were both on a mission at that point to meet our partner, which I don't think I had been in the past. I mean, I wasn't aware that I was really ready until I was ready. And Morgan was really ready. And so we started dating, and pretty quickly I gave him an ultimatum about figuring out whether he wanted to marry me or not. Because he was 39 and I was 29, and I was convinced that he was going to figure it out in the first year, or he was never going to figure it out. And I told him that. So yeah, we kind of hit the ground running.
And did you see that coming when she did that?
No, not at all. But since I was clear on what I wanted my life partner, and I was very clear that I would probably find her online.
Why is that?
Well, because we're complex humans. I'm have lots of things that I love to do, lots of outdoor things I love to do, and there are things that are certainly, I can't necessarily expect to walk into a bar in Los Angeles and find the woman of my dreams. I have no expectation that that's even really possible.
Yeah.
So you can at least find, the 7 ways you guys overlap and the things you love, and it just makes it so much easier. But so yeah, I knew that if I put my mind to it, that I would eventually find someone that was special. I'd have to go out on 10 dates for every one that was good, and that's fine. I don't mind those odds. I just know it going in.
Was it clear pretty quickly with Rachel?
Oh yeah, it was clear that she was special. I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went, but but yeah, it was clear that she was special. So.
When you say special, I just think about the short bus.
Oh, right? Yes.
Well, I mean, I knew Morgan was special because I'd dated a lot. I was very involved in the Jewish community. I went to a lot of parties. I met a lot of people. A lot of people knew me. And I remember he drove down from Los Angeles to Laguna Beach during rush hour, and he met me for drinks, and then he came down 3 more times.
Now, for people who don't know, is that a long drive?
That's practically a long distance relationship. We were 60 or 70 miles from each other, separated by the worst freeways in the country.
Yeah.
Luckily, Morgan doesn't work at traditional hours, and so he was able to come down, on a Tuesday at 3:00. So that made it possible for us to be a couple. And I would take the train up to LA from Irvine to see him on the weekends. So we made it work. But I mean, I would meet guys and they'd be like, well, let me know the next time you're in LA. I'd be like, no, you need to invite me to LA. You need to come to Orange County. There just wasn't any decisiveness with the people that I was meeting. And then Morgan he was totally willing to keep. I think I gave him a key after like our second date so he could just let himself in, because he would get to my house before I would even get off of work. And I'd walk through the door and there was my cute guy waiting on my couch doing his work, and I loved that.
That's a lot of trust early.
I guess I really liked him. We had a really good first date, a really good ending to our first date.
Oh, tell me about that.
We met at a bar, and I made the right call. It was a Brussels Bistro. It was a Belgian beer bar, which is a win for him. And we had a perfectly nice conversation. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, we have all these things in common, and you're nice and you're kind of cute, but there was no sparks. There was no like meatiness to it. And so I was like, well, this was nice. And I had been bragging about my amazing apartment. I had this great 1-bedroom in downtown Laguna Beach. And I said, why don't you come to my apartment and just check it out? It's so great. And as I'm walking up the stairs to my apartment, it suddenly occurs to me that in my enthusiasm, it never crossed my mind that he might be thinking that I was inviting him up for coffee, and I'm putting air quotes around coffee. And I was like, crap, I really hope he isn't going to try and like sleep with me, because I'm just not there tonight. I'm just not in the mood to deal with that. And he walks through the front door and I'm like, see my cute place? And then I'm thinking, oh God, what's he going to do? And he's like, it's really nice. Yeah, I really like it. Okay, it was really nice meeting you. And I'm like, I'm so glad you figured out what this is about.
So he's heading for the door.
You got it. And so I'm like, okay. So then he comes in and he gives me this hug. And, I think it'd been a really long time since I'd had a really good hug. I call it a San Francisco hug, where like they really pull you in, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And they like hold you for a minute.
Not the A-frame style.
No.
That we're used to.
Or the side hug.
No.
Terrible.
It was, but it wasn't sexual, and it wasn't even sensual. It was just sincere, and like he really pulled me in like really tight. And the only thing that came to my mind, this might be a little weird, is it was home, and I thought of my sisters. When he hugged me, like I just felt home. And he kissed me on my forehead, which I just thought was really sweet. And immediately all my spidey senses went up, and I'm like, who is this guy? I must see him again, because he just did everything I didn't expect him to do, and he did it in such a sincere and grounded way. And it was so different from everyone else that I had dated in the past that I immediately, it was like, hold the phone, like, who is this guy? And I was hooked. I want to see him again. I don't know if we hadn't had that ending, if I would have gone on a second date with him.
He won the hand on the river card.
Pretty much, yes. Won the hand on the river card. I like that.
Really
so
great.
that's how we ended up going on a second date.
So I'm curious about that moment when. What was present for you when you're in the house? Did you know what she was hoping for? Or?
Not at all. I think over the years of dating, I've learned to get rid of what I think a woman wants and really just do what I want. In the sense of, I can feel free to express how I feel in the moment, and I wasn't feeling that sense of I want to attack you right now in the moment. I was feeling open and appreciative and happy, and that's what showed up.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was learning to be natural to myself and what shows up in the moment versus, obviously she's a cute girl, and there's all this mental chatter that goes on for a guy where a cute girl invites you over. Well, therefore you got to make a move, right? So some guys would have said, dude, you're an idiot for not making a move, right? Cute girl, you may never get on a date with her, might as well seal the deal. But that's not how I want my relationship to start. I didn't even let her have sex with me for nearly a month.
Over a month.
So she was trying and you were holding it off.
Yeah.
Because, the game I was playing was to meet my partner. Obviously, we have to have great sex in order for this to be my partner, but I didn't want my own eyes to be totally clouded by lust, when really what I wanted was that person to be with forever.
Were you holding yourself back? Were you having to stop yourself?
Oh yeah.
So you wanted it, but you on a higher level weren't allowing it.
I desired it.
Give me the distinction.
Well, desire is something you feel in the body, and it's. But wanting, what did I want? I wanted to explore whether this woman was my besheret, was my partner. That was what I wanted. But what I desired was all of it, of course.
And I didn't make it easy.
No, not at all. But so there's plenty of play involved. Obviously, we weren't being celibate,
Right.
but save the main course for a little down the road. Give
How
something
did you-
to wait to look forward to.
Now I want to know how you knew when it was time to let it go.
Well, when the pot boils, when the pot boils, I suppose you have to put the vegetables into it. I don't know.
The pot was boiling the whole time.
True. But this is certain that you can't hold off forever.
You didn't wait till marriage, is what you're saying.
No.
Well, and Morgan went out of town only a couple weeks after we met to visit his dad, and so I think by not having sex, he had me really like on the hook, like waiting for him to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And he texted me just enough times to let me know that he was thinking about me when he was out of town, but not so many times that like I was like certain of my position. Like he really kept me on my toes, and I'm used to getting what I want. So.
And I will say a little bit of that was deliberate.
I know.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
I wasn't unaware of what I was doing.
So you kept her on the hook, and so then when did it take to the next step of engagement?
Like when did we become exclusive, or when did we have sex?
When did you? Oh, I'm asking when did you know you were getting married?
Okay. Very good.
For me, when I fall in love, I fall, and I fall hard. And when I break up, it is nuclear. It's like my whole life levels, and I'm useless. And like I can see it even in my career, in my friendships. I flatlined for a while, and I'm really, really at a bad emotional place. And I hit this point somewhere in my 20s where I realized I couldn't afford to keep falling in love with people that weren't the right person for me because of how difficult breakups were for me. And so I think I was pretty clear about 3 months in when I gave the ultimatum. And it wasn't, you have to marry me. What I actually said was, you get a year. You get a year to figure out whether you want to marry me or not. Because if you can't figure it out in a year, you're never going to figure it out.
So that's how you said it?
Yes, that's
Yes.
verbatim what I said.
Did you say, hey, we have to have a talk, let's sit down on the couch? Or were you just like walking along to the movies? And by the way, how did this come up?
I don't remember.
It wasn't in the context of a sit down talk.
No.
But she did phrase it essentially like that, and I'm
With the same tonation?
no.
I was probably nicer.
No, it was gently insistent, let's say. But the way she chooses her words very, very carefully. And when she said that, my initial reaction was, wow, I've never heard a woman express herself that way to me ever before. So I was a bit shocked. But I also, on the other hand, I knew what she was saying was true. So over the next few weeks, it took a while to process this because my fears would come up when I would hear her voice in my mind, like, who is this woman? Like the other side, the less evolved side was like, who is this woman? Why is who does she think? She being just some sort of bossy thing, like coming out, some fear-based thing on her part coming out. What's the basis of this? And, and I went back and forth a few times according to my interpretation of what it was actually behind it. But in truth, what was behind it was really just what she said. I have a certain amount of time to make that decision. And I think that's, it almost made it easier in some way.
Well, on one hand,
to know what her expectations are and to know how I can fulfill those. So there were certainly more moments where it was difficult as that near mark approached and thinking, okay, is this the one? Is this the one? But it really had me confront that question of, is this the one, in a way that, it was good for me. It was good for me to confront that in myself, because on the other side of the question, the other side of the confronting myself, was my own clarity that she was.
How long did it take you to reach that clarity?
Well, it took a year.
You took the full year?
Yes,
I
he
took
did.
the year. Yeah.
He had a freak out at about 9 months, and it showed up in the bedroom. All of a sudden, do you mind?
Go for it.
He was having some performance issues, and we had great sex for 9 months, like best sex I've ever had. And all of a sudden, like he couldn't complete. And I was like, "What's going on?" I think it took like 3 weeks of this happening before I finally was like, "This is clearly in your head. What is it?" And he goes, "I just don't know. This whole year mark thing, it's really scaring me." And I said, "Honey," I don't expect on our 1 year anniversary that you're going to like pop out a ring. I said, but here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk through that door one day and I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done waiting for you. And no amount of crying or begging or ring producing is going to change my mind, because I will be done. And he looked at me and he said, "I will never let you get to that point." I said, We're good. I just wanted to know I was in a safe place to fall in love. I wanted to feel safe that I could feel my emotions for him and explore my love for him, and not be in the back of my mind the whole time thinking, is this guy going to break up with me and just pulverize me?
But he might. I mean, you were giving him the freedom to do or not do.
Yes, but I felt like I took back some control, because I have this theory about men that for the first year they date a woman, they're just so happy to be like having sex and food made for them and stuff that they don't really like think about the future as long as things are good. And at the year mark, they go, maybe we should move in together, and maybe 6 months after that, they move in together, and then they live together for a year or two. And then one of two things happens, one of three things. They either break up because they realize they're not the one, but oh my God, you've now spent 3 to 4 to 5 years together, and everyone's hurt, and that's painful. The guy marries the girl because she is the one, or the guy marries the girl because he just feels like this is nice and comfortable, And for me, I wanted to be chosen. I wanted my partner to choose me, an active choice, not a path of least resistance. I'm very against these marriages that seem to produce themselves from path of least resistance, because they either fall into divorce or nice friendship. And I wanted passion, and I wanted to be chosen. So for me, it was make up your mind. I want some control over what that time frame looks like. And look, at the end of a year, if you know you don't want to marry me, sure, it's going to hurt like hell. But that's okay. That's okay, because I have set myself up to be able to deal with that reality. And I've been broken up with a couple of times in the recent past, really out of the blue, by guys that were like one day in love with me and the next day like, you know what, this just isn't going to work. And I've been blindsided a couple times. And I just didn't want that feeling.
Well, so what I really hear in this is it's beautiful that you wanted to be completely chosen. Mm-hmm. And it's extraordinarily thoughtful and confident of you to set up this structure and to be so clear about what was going to happen for you. And the timeline certainly eliminates that 3-year drag thing that definitely does happen in our culture. Mm-hmm. But I still don't see how the timeline keeps him from falling into the third category that men do sometimes, of like, well, I don't want to break up with her, but I don't know if I want to marry her, but I've got my moment.
Yeah, but I trust him. Like, the thing is I've never given that ultimatum to anyone before. I'd never even occurred to me. It was just one day I just spoke my truth. It wasn't like I geared up for it. I literally just opened my mouth and the truth came out, and the truth was this ultimatum that I didn't even know I was going to say till I said it.
Oh, you didn't plan it?
No,
Wow.
I just spoke my truth, because I was old enough at that point to understand my truth. And the difference between Morgan and all the other men I had dated up to that point was that he was always open to my truth, and I was never wrong for speaking my mind. So I didn't feel like I have this thing, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I had a girlfriend say that to me once.
Wow.
right?
That is so good.
Isn't that good? I wish I could credit it, but you can't say the wrong thing to the right person.
That's so good. That sums up. There's a theme that our couples, 40 interviews I've done now,
Yeah.
are always trying to say something about communication. And they'll speak for 10 minutes on it. You got it in one half of a sentence.
I like brevity.
This is what Ray does. And I will respond to what she said. I mean, the context that I come from in my life has choice and the power to make a powerful choice in life. Is a very elevated thing. Let me take that again. I really believe that choice is one of the most powerful things we can do. Making a choice. And luckily, when she gave me that ultimatum, I knew it aligned with what I believe already, in that we choose our lives. We make the best choice we can make, and then our lives completely come from that choice. Our lives are sourced by making powerful choices. And do we have all the data? Do I know how she's going to be as my wife? Sure, after 1 year, I may not know what it's going to be like in 4 years, but I know enough to make a powerful choice. And by making that choice, it has life show up differently. It has life show up as my choice. It has life serve me. And I think that's such a different energy to enter a relationship, enter a marriage with, than sort of waiting to see how things are going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it gives you a measure of power in the world. It's like that's the one power that you have as a human, really.
That's how I like to live other aspects of my life as well. So it only makes sense that it would apply to relationships.
Wow. Okay, so then the year mark comes. Did you stretch a day over that year mark, a week over that year mark? What happened?
It was right around this. It was right around that time.
It was a month.
It was a month.
So you stretched a month over. Did you?
It was.
It was 27 days. So, did you? You must have been experiencing a lot of pressure at that point.
No. No, there was some, but when you say there was some. There was, heightened anticipation. There was, I guess, butterflies, which is, mild, slight anxiety. Is everything going to go well if I do this? And how am I going to do it? And is she going to like the ring and all that? But I wasn't. By that point, I was already clear.
That's my question. Do you remember the moment that you chose?
That's a good question. I will say that there wasn't a moment that I chose. My choice was clear. And I knew my choice. It wasn't the default choice. It wasn't the path of least resistance choice. It was a heartfelt certainty. So I didn't need to, one moment say, do I choose this? Yes, I do. Well, it was clear to me that my choice was made. That this was the one.
I mean, looking back, listening to the story, it seems like your choice was made when she asked you the question, because because you were so impacted by the clarity.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of respect for a woman that's willing to make such a request in the way that she made it, with no, not coming from fear, coming from clarity on what she wanted. Like, I knew that style of communication would only serve us, because that's how I like to communicate and how I like to be communicated with. So there was clarity from me that, okay, this is for real at that moment.
There's another brilliant component of the way she asked that I keep thinking about, which is she gave you the time, the space necessary to properly choose.
Yeah.
She had a request, but it wasn't like, tell me now.
Yeah. That would have been, if she'd said, tell me now, I would have flipped my lid.
Or any
at
version.
some level,
any
I would have
version
flipped
of
my
that,
lid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring it up again. I brought it up around 3 months. We talked about it at 9 months because he told me he was freaking out about it. And then it didn't come up again,
Yeah.
because, I wanted to be chosen. So I wasn't going to nag him.
Yeah.
I just wanted us both orienting to the same compass point. We're both looking in that direction and thinking about that direction instead of him going, maybe we should move in together. And I'm thinking, maybe we should get married.
Yeah.
You're starting your relationship on a different page.
Yeah.
And I think that's a disconnect.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to think, can I marry her? I wanted him to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
And orienting to me that way, because that's how I'm orienting to him.
Yeah.
So I would like us to be thinking about each other in the same way, towards the same goal. I just thought that would serve us.
Yeah. So how long has it been now
Since we met,
since you married?
we've been married for almost 2 years, 2 years in April.
And you had, how long was the engagement then?
18 months.
Okay. Yeah. So about 4.5 years together at
Yeah.
this point. So you've definitely gone through the, the initial passion phase, the serotonin honeymoon phase. Where would you say you're at in the way people talk about relationship phases? Would you place yourself in a category in that way?
I'm not sure I know the categories.
Same.
Yeah. The reason I left it open is so many people have different kinds of categories. There's the chemical one. That's one example. Dopamine to serotonin to oxytocin. And that oxytocin dip can be pretty a doozy for people because passion changes. The nature of sexual interaction changes. The nature of connection changes. But have you seen any major ups and downs so far in the relationship?
Oh, yeah, we go through arcs. When we moved in together, I freaked out, which I didn't expect. I didn't even see it coming. It's just we moved in together, and all of a sudden it was, for me, you're too close. You need to, back off, go away, way too close. I had been living alone, and I had been my own person for a long time at that point. And all of a sudden, there was someone in my house all the time. And Morgan works from home, so I would leave for work, and I would come home, and he would be there.
It's a small place, too.
It was a small place. It was 600, 700 square feet, maybe.
Was this pre-marriage?
Yeah, this was pre-marriage. We moved in together after we got engaged. That's my rule. No moving in until you're engaged. Again, you're on the same compass point.
Yeah.
The odds of you breaking up are a lot slimmer and dealing with that kind of chaos. And I think a month in, I finally just had to tell Morgan, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I'm really upset, and I'm having a really hard time living with you, and I don't know why. I kept thinking it would go away. I kept thinking it would resolve, and it didn't. And we had been having really consistent sex for 18 months at that point, and we moved in together, and it went full stop. I didn't even want to be touched. I don't know necessarily to this day what that was about. I just had a total meltdown. I just couldn't deal. All I wanted to do was get away from him.
That could have been critical.
Yeah,
for
it was
somebody.
painful.
I mean, it could have been the end for some
Yeah,
couples.
it could have.
How did you guys deal with that?
It certainly occurred to me that was a possibility, and that put us into a bit of a freak out cycle. At least in my mind, because I'm of the two of us, I'm the one that spins around in my mind more than Ray. Ray can compartmentalize. She can go to work and leave her relationship at home until she steps in the front door. Whereas if I'm at work and my relationship is in meltdown mode, I can't perform very well because I'm still spinning about it. So, the best way for me to live my life is to go right at it. If there's something there, I have to go right at it to resolve it. Otherwise, I'm somewhat incapable of carrying on the rest of my life.
For me, the way I coped with it was I gave myself a deadline. I said, Ray, you're going to stick it out for, I can't remember, maybe 3 or 6 months. You're just going to stick it out because you don't know what this is about. You don't know what the cause of this is. It's silly to abandon a relationship that's been great for the last 18 months because you're going through some meltdown that you don't understand.
You don't even understand it, for goodness sake.
Exactly. And luckily, we had moved in literally next door to my best friend, my future maid of honor. And I could just walk out the front door and she was physically there. And I did that a lot. And I think I confided in her about the freak out. I'm sure I did. And she was very supportive. She's like, whatever you decide, I'm on your side. Morgan's great, but you got to figure out what this is. And I think it helped because I had just left Orange County where I had all my really good friends. I'd personally built up a lot of the Jewish community. I had left a community of 8 years to move to LA. And I think if we had moved to a different part of LA where I wasn't physically next to my best friend, I don't know that we would have made it. Like, I needed her and she was there, and it helped me cope. After a month, I was finally willing to talk about it even. And I'm the talker. I'm the one that's like, here's my emotions and I understand them. It took me a month to even tell him I don't understand what's going on. And I think that helped, that I just said, I acknowledge this is terrible. This is not the way it should be. And I don't know why. And that helped. And then I don't know, did it take us 2 months? Maybe 3 months after we moved in to find another rhythm, a new rhythm?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took us a couple months.
And that was a rough time, I must say. It was, I mean, it's hard for me to go because there's obviously a tension, but there was very little sex. There was very little.
There was no sex. There was no sex.
Let's say very little.
And you had such good sex up until then.
Exactly. Like the day we moved in together, it was like someone flipped a switch. And I was driving now, 50 miles each way to work because I still had my job in Orange County. I was getting pressure to get a job in LA.
From him?
No, just from myself, just the drive. And I wasn't happy at my job. I'd kind of petered out a lot in a lot of ways. It just wasn't the right job for me at that time. And I took a job and was miserable. And that did not help our situation. And actually what really brought us together was after I think a month, I decided to quit the job. And I didn't have a lot of money in savings. And, we weren't really in a position to have me just figure out how to freelance for a while. But Morgan was like, you've got to quit this job. I've never seen you so unhappy. So I quit the job. And right when I quit the job, you left for New York or something for a shoot. And I got 2 weeks home alone without him there and without a full-time job. I picked up some freelance work. And for some reason, that combination of like trust that he would catch me if I couldn't pay the bills and alone time to miss him because we'd been together and not have this pressure of a 100-mile commute every day or an unhappy job or some combination, that put me into a good emotional place, I think, to process. That's what happened to us.
Then
I'm going to riff on that because that's one of our things. One of the things that allows us to work is in our ultimate discovery about what we think was the source of the part of the breakdown when we moved in together. We are, as people, need time. We need space and time apart from each other. It so happens when I go on the road for jobs, and I went to Vietnam for a month, it's actually the best thing for us. And to be able to completely disengage, completely have our own lives, and then come back together, the energy is so delightful when we return. It's become part of our rhythm, and it's become part of how we identify the success of our relationship. And I know, for example, when she was freelancing, this is the opposite of it. When she was freelancing, she was home all the time, and that to me is like, oh, that's sort of the worst. I love my wife dearly, but if she's on the couch and I'm on the couch working, and then there's no coming home at the end of the night and then getting to see and share about the day. You saw the day together. For me, like literally, if that was her lifestyle, we couldn't be together. Like we just couldn't. I would have to go away to some coffee shop on the other side of town and work all day to come back to be able to appreciate coming back to her, and to share our day. This would not work otherwise. We are not tuned that way. No. And I think some of our analysis later on of why the moving in was so difficult is both confronting the issue of space and how much space we need to be together, to spend with friends, physical space, physical proximity, like know where to go. Like if you're having a bad, if Ray's in a bad mood or I'm in a bad mood, I'm right in her face. It's a 600 square foot apartment, nowhere to go.
And then when it finished, was it finished? Like when you moved through it, was it just done?
Yeah, it was done until I freaked out about getting married.
Which is a great irony.
I
That's
know.
a really wonderful one.
I know. I think at some point after we got engaged, I'm like, honey, now that I have the ring and, we're all settled about where we're headed, we don't actually have to get married. I'm like, I'm good. He's like, no, we're getting married. I'm like, we could elope. He's like, no, we're getting married.
As
I'm
in
like,
a big wedding?
yeah. I'm like, we could just, pop over to City Hall. And he was absolutely not. And we're getting married, dress, venue. My mom's going to be there. We're getting married. He's the traditional one.
I plan to only get married once, and I want to be able to have my family there. I want to have a proper wedding.
Which, for the record, after we got married, he said, I understand now why you wanted to elope. I don't regret it, but...
Not like I would do it differently, but I get it.
Yes.
I do get it. She had been married one time before.
So you'd already been through that whole thing.
Yes.
That's an interesting point. I've always thought that people who've been married before make great partners because they've kind of gotten rid of the fairy tale princess fantasy, or the flip side is whatever the guys have their fantasy ideas wrapped up in with marriage. But did you notice that with her, that it was a little bit more pragmatic and less like expectation oriented?
Generally, she's extremely pragmatic in everything. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
I don't labor under any delusions. But, I mean,
No,
I got
no.
married at 18.
Oof.
The reason why it didn't work out was because I was 18 years old.
Right.
I definitely learned about the fact that you have to be the same person before the marriage as you do after the marriage.
But that's not possible.
Well, no, but I mean, so I think I was probably a lot nicer in the first couple months to this guy, because I was 18 and I just wanted to be liked by him, loved by him. And I remember the first week we were married, he had this crazy job working for the BLM, and he would get up at like 6 a.m. to go cut trees. And I think for like the first week of our marriage, I was like, oh, honey, I'll get up at 5 a.m. and make you breakfast. And after a week, I was like, no, I'm in college. I've got a job. I'm on the debate team. No. And for him, that was like, what? And I was raised in a religious community, so the wifey poo who stays home and makes breakfast and has babies, that's what he was expecting from me. And even my best friend years later was like, Ray, or she
False expectations.
yeah, exactly. She said, Rachel, he just thought you were gonna just roll over one day and become Susie housewife, and I don't know why he thought you were gonna change, but he really thought you were gonna change the day you got married. And I mean,
And you would let him believe it a little bit?
I did, and that's the thing. I let him believe that I would be that way, and because I wanted to believe I would be that way. It was a story I was telling myself. Once I got married, then I would feel domestic. Guess what? Once I got married, I felt like I was a wild animal trapped in a cage. I was still me, except I had I had bars around me. Then that's really how it felt. So I think if I learned anything, it was out of the gate, you have to be clear on who you are.
To the extent that you know the answer to that question.
Absolutely, and with as much basis in reality as possible. I always tell Christopher, I don't expect you to read my mind. I'll never expect you to be clairvoyant. I will tell you exactly what I need. And I think I've stuck to that.
Mm-hmm. You have.
So, I'm curious about your wedding vows.
There's a whole story there.
Did you promise lifelong?
Can I tell the story?
Of course you can.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier I had a freak out about getting married, and I looked at Morgan and I had a freak out, like I mentioned earlier, about how, and I told Christopher, I'm not sure I can stand up in front of everyone we love and say forever and ever, no matter what, you and me. And I told him, I said, people change. I change, you change, circumstances change. I can't make that promise.
You'd already been through one.
Right. And boy, let me tell you, eternal love, lasted 2 years. And for the record, my parents are still married 30 some odd years later. So I see it work, but I know how hard it is, how much work there is. And this is when I knew I was marrying the right person, because I think most guys, if you had looked at them and said, honey, I can't make that promise, they'd have been offended, to say the least. They'd have been like, how can you not promise me fidelity and love forever and ever? How can you not want that? And instead he looked at me and he said, okay, I'm just going to ask you to try your hardest. And if you know me, you know that my hardest is, off the charts. I work very hard at everything I do. And it was this moment where I realized my partner understood me on a fundamental level in a way that I didn't even understand myself. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm marrying the right guy. He didn't freak out. He didn't lose his mind. All he did was say the right thing to me. He didn't make it about him, you know? And so for our wedding vows, we have to get this video. The day of the wedding, I'm getting ready. I'm getting my hair and my makeup done. And all of a sudden, I look up at my bridesmaids and I go, I know what I forgot. And they were like, what? What'd you forget? I said, I forgot to write my wedding vows. And they all looked at me, and like their jaws drop. And they're like, what are you going to do?
Kind of a big deal.
I know. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I went back to getting ready because I need to be getting ready. And I'm on the way to the wedding, and I'm in the car with my best friend. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I still haven't written my wedding vows. Now I'm like 20 minutes away from this thing. Here's the thing. In my arrogance, I was like state champion in impromptu speaking. And I'm like, I got this. I'll just get up there and it'll come to me. It always comes to me. And you know, that's my arrogance. And I'm sitting outside going, it'll come to me. I'm just be calm, be quiet in your mind, and the words will come. I'm waiting outside the venue. Words are not coming. They're not coming. So I get out of the car. We do our first reveal photos. We walk into the venue. We get up to the top. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Whatever he says, I'll just riff off that. It'll be great. We start to get married. And all of a sudden, the officiant looks at me and goes, Rachel? I was like, oh, crap. And I pause and I take a deep breath, just, you know, as one does, preparing and composing. And the words don't come. And this has never happened to me in my entire life. I have never not had the words come. And I let the breath out. And then I breathe in again deeply, at which point everyone that's watching the wedding starts chuckling. Because it's become obvious that I am not prepared, like not prepared.
Christopher, you're just laughing right now.
Oh, because he saw it. He saw it. He saw panic probably like creeping into my face. And then
I had busily written mine over the few days prior, and I was all ready with what I wanted to say, and I was all like looking forward to what she was going to say because I know it's going to be really well thought out, and really beautiful. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
Where is it? But did any part of you think this means something about us?
No. I was just waiting.
So yeah, everyone was
something.
waiting. Everyone was waiting. So I finally again spoke my truth. And the truth was, and this is what I said, I think I can quote myself pretty closely. It was, I don't know how to write vows. I only know how to tell stories. So then I told the story about how I freaked out. I quoted a poem from Dean Young, and it was, Hark, dumbass. The error is not to fall, but to fall from no height. And I said, you know, may we fall from great heights together. And those were my vows.
That's it for part 1 of our episode with Ray and Morgan, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in on Thursday to hear about the surprising truths around sexuality that Ray and Morgan discovered during a challenging time in their relationship. I hope you'll join us for that. If you liked what you heard on our show today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference when you do that. Please also consider donating to our Patreon campaign. We're on a mission to crush shame here, and every penny really does help. You can find our campaign at patreon.com/together. That's patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at @together_show. or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Lena. Our art director, and my one and only, is Aubrey Pick. She's taking a nap right now with the cat and the dog. It's adorable. Thanks once again to my guests, Ray and Morgan. I'll be in town soon, guys. I can't wait to see you both. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.